to let's say a few words at the beginning. Most of this evening is going to be taken up by the wonderful members of our citizens' jury who are going to present to you the findings and recommendations that they came up with. But we wanted to set the context a little bit for why did we do this thing you're going to hear about later. In Calderdale, we have known about the climate emergency since before anybody called it that. We've known about extreme weather and changing weather patterns. We've known about the impact that that can have on people's lives and people's homes, people's workplaces. I imagine that there are a number of people in the room who have had first-hand experience of being flooded to one extent or the other. Everybody who lives in Calderdale knows about what happens when those extreme weather events occur. And so Calderdale Council, I think we're all very proud of for taking a real lead towards a net zero emissions target of reaching net zero by 2038. And I know that it's something that the people of Calderdale are really behind the council in the actions towards that. One of the biggest contributors to our carbon emissions in this borough, and it's partly to do with the climate and the nature of the housing stock, is the built environment. It's our homes and the way we heat them and the extent to which we have to try and heat them to keep them warm and dry. The statistics are that there's 69,000, 70,000, 75,000. I think we're at 75,000 now, aren't we, Richard? It's crept up. They've counted again. I think it's probably in some of Laura's work. She knows how many more. We've got more data, which is really, really fantastic. 75,000 homes in Calderdale need to be improved to bring them up to the very most basic acceptable energy efficiency level. So EPCC, which it's not wonderful, but at least it would mean a significant reduction from where we are at the moment. We know how to do it. There's already lots of solutions out there. We've learned a lot by trial and error, I think, both in the council's building works sections, in local construction companies, and in other people who are taking more alternative routes towards retrofit as well. We know that the best thing to do is insulate. That's the first step for all our properties. After that, there are other things that we can do. We can change the heating systems. We can get away from gas and move towards green fuels. So we know all that. Why isn't it happening? That's, nobody seemed to be able to come up with an answer to that question. And a couple of years ago, we had a meeting to look at a funding bid, which became a partnership between it was Sam and Richard from the council and ourselves at Todd College and the Carbon Co-op. Katsa from the Carbon Co-op, if anybody's not met the Carbon Co-op, do talk to them later. We applied for and were successful in getting funding from Innovate UK as part of a Net Zero Fast Followers programme. It's just a funding programme about solutions to the climate emergency. And the funding was for a research project to look at what are the non-technical barriers to retrofit. What are the things that stop people from doing it? Why isn't it happening? And more to the point, what can we do to overcome those barriers? Where are we taking it? How do we move things forward? And so we arranged a citizens' jury, and this was, I think, a first for Calderdale. I know that other parts of the country have had citizens' juries looking at various aspects particularly of the climate crisis. But we think this is the first time anybody's looked specifically at the issues around retrofit. And certainly it's a first here. So over the last, over the course of October, November and almost into December, a panel of 26 people came together to 6 events. They made a huge time commitment, full Saturdays, spent locked up in a room in the Imperial Hotel or whatever it is opposite the station, with some mediocre grub compared to tonight. But it, you know, and they did a lot of listening, a lot of talking, and what you're going to hear this evening is the outcome of all that work. Just at this point, I want to take the opportunity to thank those people. It was only people who were really, really sick who didn't manage to drag themselves there. The level of attendance was absolutely amazing. The level of engagement in the sessions was way beyond what we'd expected. And I think lots of people by the end were saying, "Oh God, I know so much about it now, I just want to know more." The big question is, where do we take it now? And that's what we want to try and answer a little bit at the end. I know most of the jurors have said that they really, really want to see this moved forward. They're going to, in a collective and individual capacities, they're going to be on your backs, Calderdale Council. They're going to be on your backs, West Yorkshire Combined Authority. They're going to be on your backs, Westminster Government, because they've identified some ways in which you can really help. It's not all down to you, though, and nobody's saying that. So, you know, don't take that as with the buck's being passed now, because it isn't that simple. But there are certainly things that we hope that will get taken forward. So, without further ado, the big question that we set the jury was, how can we make Calderdale homes warmer, healthier and cheaper to heat?
I wanted to join the jury because I spent many years working in environment and housing policy, so I know what needs to happen. But when it came to my own property, it wasn't that simple, because I got conflicting advice and I didn't have the money to risk in that kind of investment. So that's why I joined. And that's why this first recommendation is very important for me. It's to establish a viable, integrated and physical one-stop shop area model for Calderdale. I'll just explain very quickly what we mean by that. There's a lot of words there. One-stop shop, we felt it should be a network of trusted advisors linked to a network of trusted suppliers and underpinned by a quality assurance scheme. It would need to be, and it would offer everything from information, housing assessments, all the way through to project management. It would need to be viable, means it needs a funding commitment. Integrated means it has to be linked to local services, including health and regional activity. And physical, we heard that the West Yorkshire Authority were going to offer online support, but we really felt very strongly that it needed to be face-to-face in a trusted place.
The key reasons for wanting to join this jury, I want to help create a more sustainable environment and take active steps to create a healthy, sustainable future for my children and for other children that inhabit the area. This recommendation is about retrofit materials to be VAT exempt. It's a bit of a no-brainer really, and it kind of follows the line with how we deal with new build properties, which are all zero rated. At the end of the day, what we're doing is we're encouraging people to knock down properties and build new, which completely goes against the strategy. We should be reusing the fabric.
My particular recommendation I'm talking about is to develop a local retrofit standard to guarantee the availability of high quality, equitable, circular local supply chain. And why I think that's important, it's important that we have a well-established and highly capable supply chain that benefits Calderdale businesses and Calderdale residents, and one that serves the needs from advice, materials, parts and training, local jobs, quality control and auditing, end-to-end everything.
I join the citizens' jury to increase my knowledge of the do's and don'ts of achieving net zero carbon efficiency at my property. The citizens' jury understands that the development of an archetype Bible is being put together by Calderdale and is already in progress for the purpose of retrofitting different types of archetypical houses. The project should be funded by central government and the West Yorkshire County Combined Authority, providing financial support for the development and implementation of the guide. Promotion of the retrofit scheme. The guide will serve as a starting point for promoting retrofit schemes to the public, helping them to understand the benefits and processes involved.
In terms of why I was build jury is because I think it's a very interesting way for the council to open up avenues to genuinely engage its citizens. When we were looking at the jury, one of the significant barriers we found was finance and how to build instruments that are genuinely equitable. And that means in terms not just of levels of deprivation, but also in terms of intergenerational fairness. So we feel that we need 0% interest retrofit loans, because then people find debt to be a risk and they won't incur it. So we need to change the risk-benefit ratio in favour of people being able to spread the risk over time and improve their buildings. We believe that you also though need to lobby central government, because we need match funding loans for this to actually ensure people, the number of people we need to take these up needs to be much more significant than most people will just endure. So our concern is to make sure we lobby the central government, use the levers that are available, such as a sovereign wealth fund, levy the energy suppliers to actually match fund, and for then the local authority to keep the financial spend to further some of the other instruments.
This is an existential, really important problem. My background's in kind of disability and social policy. I wanted to join the jury to learn and also hopefully to make a difference in whatever way I can. This one's about coordinating development, increasing one-stop shops, and also developing area-based schemes, by which we mean groups of householders collaborating together on retrofit, because it's cost-effective and more efficient to do so. And our recommendation is how to facilitate that. We're looking to the Council for leadership in this and one-stop shops to create really visible examples of collaboration that people can see. We were really fortunate on the jury. We learned, for example, about successful schemes in other areas, such as in Levenshulme, where the Carbon Co-op has supported groups of householders to retrofit their houses. We need these kinds of things too in Calderdale, we feel. We feel that really clear leadership is needed from the authorities. It's very difficult to do that. We're not isolated, but we're individual in the sense as homeowners, in a way that perhaps people in other housing situations aren't. And that's why we need leadership. For example, the local area plan to identify areas and fund community engagement. So people have to know about it as a possibility and identify places where people take part. Secondly, to develop archetypes. So how we can do this, models, if you like, for how we can retrofit specific kinds of houses, and agree pre-approved planning, which could...
Now, the headline on my recommendation is under heading surveying, detailed surveys to be carried out by independent assessors. Recommendations of this jury are mainly aimed at owner-occupiers, not people in social housing, because they cannot choose or not choose to retrofit their properties. Therefore, they would mainly be self-funding, their own retrofit measures. So, they need high-quality, independent, unbiased assessors to come to their homes who are not going to financially benefit from the recommendations they are given.
So my recommendation is pre-approved planning permission for retrofit measures and listed property guidance. I feel like there's two prongs to this one. So I think in general, there's a little bit of a barrier for homeowners in understanding what is permitted development and what is planning permission when it comes to retrofitting their own homes and retrofitting measures. The second prong to this is obviously listed properties. I'm very passionate about that, particularly because I'm living in one. But I do find that it's very difficult for owners of listed properties to really get going on their retrofit journey even more, because a lot of the time, a lot of things that are permitted development in a normal house aren't for a listed property. But really it is quite essential for the council to publish guidance around what measures are appropriate and suitable for listed buildings, specific to the Calderdale area, and crucially to provide pre-approval for certain retrofit measures where appropriate.
I have a 18th century farmhouse, stone built. We've done quite a bit to it in terms of putting solar panels on the roof and stuff, and a lot of insulation work. It's been really positive. Why I wanted to get involved with this, partially my friend Imogen did a retrofit on their house. I found it very interesting. My company also deals with home renovation projects. So kind of going into people's properties and recommending beautiful things, aesthetically pleasing, functionally great, but not looking at the fabric of the building so much. So that's been really interesting for me. I think my topic, my recommendation is awareness campaign to raise the awareness, encourage and assist all audiences to start their retrofit journey. Without this point, all the fine detail that's discussed later on becomes quite difficult to push forward. The thing about getting people's awareness is educating them to the problems that they might have in their house, how to deal with them effectively, and to actually make them more comfortable for themselves. The wider piece is to spread the knowledge of climate change and reaching net zero to benefit ourselves, our families, their families and beyond, and in fact making the world a safer place to live in. As we pointed out, it's a very community-based thing. It's a very diverse sector that we're dealing with across Calderdale, with many different communities within, and that's why the campaign really needs to come through. The schools, churches, religious buildings, doctor surgeries and so on, and actually tie into communities and get the communities to take action.
The recommendation of the jury is related to the local generation of renewable energy. We can and we should save as much energy as we can through improving the energy efficiency of our properties, but we still need to generate energy. When you look, Calderdale has already done quite a number of projects and gained recognitions for these.
Right.
Scaling up is the next challenge, and more proactive publicity using real examples will encourage individuals, businesses and community groups to become involved. Could Calderdale help householders by sourcing solar panels at reduced rates for a cooperative of householders? Publicity through libraries and public spaces such as the Peace Hall, looking at planning for local small-scale wind generators. The council can't fund retrofit on its own, but it can be a major trusted facilitator and disseminator of real-life examples and lessons.
I'm actually a gas engineer by trade, so I've been involved in quite a lot of renewables, and the Marlow, I'm all confused, okay. So I was really interested in this because it gave us non-biased, informed choices that we can make in our own homes. So the subject I've got was retrofit funding through grants and subsidies using tax thresholds as caps. So there is funding out there, but for the average working family or pensioners, they're not eligible. These haven't been reviewed for a very long time, so we discussed that, is there an opportunity to maybe use the tax thresholds, or could they be done square footage of houses? The other thing was, where do you start? So how much would it cost for your house? So you have to pay to have assessments done, EPCs. Could the government pay for that? So we know we've got a starting block where we're starting.
This project enables public to be healthier by living in their warm and dry homes, and reduces harm to the environment caused by heating of the properties. I've got finance, widening use of green mortgages for retrofit funding at preferential rates. Nice mouthful. Why is it important to me? If a property is well maintained and future proofed, that's with regards to the climate change and rising energy costs, then it is a much safer investment for the bank. The property is far less likely to lose value, the house owner is less likely to end up in negative equity, and with lower energy bills, it is less likely that the property owners will run into financial difficulty every winter.
I'm always engaged with the community at all levels, and I work with a lot of deprived areas and a lot of elderly people, and I'm being exposed to a lot of homes, and there's lots of houses that are not up to scratch with being warm, especially in the elderly communities. So I find that this kind of information is very vital for everyone to be engaged in. Off in Calderdale, because all our houses are really needing all this improvement, but it won't be done if people are not engaged, and a lot of my community hardly know anything about it. And since I've been on this journey, I've been talking about it to lots of people, and people don't know where to start, they don't know where to go, even though there's a lot of information what I've found out on this jury service workshops. It's not out there, and I don't know how to go, so we need a lot of people to be passionate about it, talk about it, and it can set off, and people will think about it. And if we've got support with my colleague that's just spoken now, and we need all that tying it together, but it's getting people to little communities having somebody saying, right, we need to get going so we can all get together. So I think having lots of championships from younger ages to universities to working mum, toddlers, working families that are just trying to pass by with their bills, they all need to get engaged and tap into all these wonderful resources that are there that we don't even know about. And hopefully we can get Calderdale a little bit more healthier and greener with the carbon emission and getting warmer.
Citizens' jury, like Citizens' Assembly, are wonderful things because they are democracy in action. My recommendation says there needs to be clear communication of the Council's vision of net zero in 2038 and the role of the Retrofit strategy to get there. The three reasons why I'm saying it's important. Firstly, the Retrofit strategy is a central part of the Climate Action Plan, and it must succeed at this level of reducing emissions. There are a few different objectives to the Retrofit strategy, and as Richard, I believe it's Richard S, pointed out, you've got the making houses warm, making them healthier, making them cheaper to run, and emissions. These overlap, which is great to make it politically acceptable. We all want some of that. But also there are tensions between them. They're not always leading to the same actions. So it's just important to look at pros and cons of talking about the different objectives and different groups of people. And there's also unintended consequences that could come about. For example, if you just stress, we're doing this to save money, there can be unintended consequences, or we're just doing it. So really it's just thinking about which objectives, which communication strategy is important with different groups of people. And different people will need to focus on different things. They're not all going to aim for the same thing, for the same reason. Thirdly, there does need to be, it's an ongoing process of communication of the strategy. And I received an annual review or something of it today, which I haven't read. But, so it is happening, but it does need to be ongoing.
I have just learned so much just from that presentation. And so I'm going to answer the questions, that's my job, isn't it? So the first question about can the council play a role in communicating and lobbying for implementation of the recommendations to regional and national government and other relevant agencies. So I'm the director of the council that leads on climate action. I'm conscious the leader of the council's here, the cabinet member for climate action are here as well. So and I think the short answer, I hope you agree, is yes, which the council can play a role in communicating and lobbying to implement the recommendations, I think is the really simple answer. Influencing is a really key theme of our climate action plan. And actually our cabinet endorsed influencing strategy just before Christmas, I believe, or very recently, which sort of sets out the things we want to influence, the things us having a common line as a council, but also as a collective action around key priorities. One of those priorities relates to retrofit, and I think there's a real opportunity in that. So that's very much about us having a common voice, really clear about what our asks are. And I think the fantastic feedback and thoughts and reflections that we've had from you give us an opportunity to add some depth to the influencing asks in the retrofit bit of our influencing strategy. You can be assured through the Climate Action Partnership we'll take that away and have a look at what that means for the climate, for the influencing strategy. And I think the other thing is, when we are influencing, when we are talking to the Combined Authority, which we have influencing, the Yorkshire and Humber and Climate Commission, Council Patient and I are both involved in, and government, when we tell them that these are things we've dreamt of, but actually a citizens' jury has really deliberated on these issues, and this has come from our communities, from our citizens, that will give extra weight, I think, to the messages. So thank you. And that collective voice, that having the voice together, when we say something, that being reinforced, that being things that other people in Calderdale are saying again, is really powerful, I think. So thank you for that. The second question, which is how they align with the work of the council and how will the council consider them as priorities for the future. I mean, just first of all, retrofitting is a priority for the council. It's really challenging, but it is a priority for us already. And the insight that you've given us is really helping us think about that. We've got Richard sat there, in my head, the king of retrofit, and in my world. So I'm looking straight at him. So it is a priority for us, and I think this has really helped us. I think we've also got in our Climate Action Partnership, we've got our Warm and Resilient Buildings group. And again, they are working on a fair retrofit strategy for Calderdale. And I think some of the points that you made about trust, around people having the trusted relationship, trusted advice, some of the things you talked about that almost like that sliding scale in terms of getting additional contributions. I think they're all things that need to fit into that fair retrofit strategy. So again, you can be assured that we'll take your recommendations away and think about how they fit into that fair retrofit strategy. You also, I know you know about the local area energy plan. I believe you had some, and again, Laura, the queen of local area energy plans, is sat up there. So you've seen what that local area energy plan does. It gives us that really technical, evidence-based information about warm and resilient homes, or the lack of, and the challenge, if you like, in Calderdale. I think what you've done that is really enhance that and bring together with the technical stuff some real deliberation, some real thoughts, some real reflections about how we bring that to life, what that might mean, what some of the options are, in a way that the data alone will never do. Your people that care about this and that have really reflected on it in Calderdale. So it just brings it to life in a way that data never will on its own. We've obviously got things like the Street Demonstrator Project, which we talked about, didn't we, as well.
And we've still got work to do on the, engaging with the willing to pay in terms of retrofit. I'm ad-libbing from my notes and my help that I had by saying that we also have an element of our climate action plan, which is about community climate action, and that's very much about developing neighbourhood climate action plans. So some of the stuff you said about, needing groups of people sometimes to work together, I think there's a real opportunity for us to explore that through those community-powered neighbourhood climate action plans, and we're actually putting a bid in for some funding really at the moment around working with probably 2 or 3 communities to actually look at that. And I envisage retrofit will sort of feed into that, so thank you for that as well. I'm talking for too long now, I know that. Finally, are there any surprises with the recommendations, or is there anywhere we'd want a more digitalisation? And again, just to say, I love citizens' juries. I have been involved in previous roles in quite a number of them. So I've learned one thing, I've learned a lot, but one thing generally to all of them, never be surprised by how rich and how brilliant the ideas are, how you learn from everyone. So in a way I've learned not to be surprised. I think there's some incredibly important stuff here that I've not thought about, lots that I've not thought about and that I've learned. But I'm never surprised because I know how fantastic that opportunity to really deliberate with people with real talent and passions. I think there's quite a lot we'd want to talk about further though. I think so things like how we communicate. I'm always signing up press releases and with Councillor Patient for stuff about our climate action plan, about our work on net zero. I think we talk about it loads. That is such helpful feedback that we could do that better. I'd love to talk to you about how we do that better, how we communicate better about the plan. We've already got thoughts in our community climate action plan theme about green hubs, advice hubs, which link a lot with the recommendation you made. I'd really love to talk to you about that, making sure that the things we're developing through our climate action plan fit with your vision for that. Lots of things. I think we'd really love to keep talking to you about this.
And I'm certainly learning an awful lot myself as I go on this journey through my day-to-day employment and working on projects like this with volunteers and committed individuals who've been part of this jury. So thank you ever so much for volunteering. Thank you ever so much for giving up your time on weekends. Thank you for listening to the expert witnesses as well, who've all contributed to this process. And thank you very much to Imogen and Julie for organising a wonderful evening. I've certainly taken a lot from it. Lots of lessons for me personally and challenges in terms of my role and how I incorporate these lessons into my work and future projects going forward. So, on behalf of the Council, the Carbon Co-op and Tonbridge Learning Centre, thank you again to the jury members. Really appreciate it, and we'll hope to stay in touch as we go on this journey in Calderdale. Thank you.
I wanted to say thank you, and I wanted to pay my respects really to all of you on the jury. What a rich experience in what you brought here in this council chamber. This is where we work every day, and this is a building heated by heat pump. Actually, not very much this evening, but I have a deep, dark secret not just that I'm Prophet London Scottish, but my deep, dark secret is that I'm passionate about retrofit. I'm absolutely passionate about retrofit. There's a lot of heat and light about the local plan and new buildings. That is a tiny, tiny amount of buildings compared to where we all live currently. Those houses that we live in, some of which will be here in 100 years or 2 years' time. And so the challenge for me is not just about new build and what that's like, but it's actually about what do we do about the places where people actually live. And I was interested in lots of things. I was interested to hear about the trust and communications, interested to hear about the different ideas about finance, interested to hear about partnerships in the way that we do this journey together. I was interested in the use of the word Bible, because it could be the Quran, or the Torah, or if you're not in the faith book, whatever your book of choice in terms of guiding you, how do we live? How do we live our lives, really? And that's the real challenge that you brought to us tonight. How do we live our lives here in Calderdale, full of old, cold, stony brick buildings, really? And you've really brought a richness to that debate tonight, and for that we really, really thank you. And I look forward, it's going to be challenging, but I look forward to the next bit of the journey. Thank you so much.